Okay, I think my camera's working. So, I'm going to kind of show you a few things you can do with your student observation activities. Let me roll up the window here so you can hear me okay. So, you can't see it, but I'm getting ready to back out of a parking spot. So this is where you could say, okay, to back out of this parking lot safely, what do I need to do? Where should I check? Now, how I do it is I start off with where are people coming from? Okay, because that's, to me, the first step in all of defensive driving is acknowledging where are people coming from, including pedestrians. So you might say, where are people coming from? And what is the potential problem? What can you narrate what I should do to back out of this parking lot safely? What are some things I can do? Now I'm going to go ahead and back out. And I'm looking all over, all my mirrors. I have a left signal on, and I'm checking real good. And this is how I do it. Okay. And I am a little off, so I'll double check. Now I'm going to come to another intersection here, and you can't see it. I'm just in the Stephen Henniger parking lot, and I'm going to come to a stop. And I'm going to say, where are people coming from that could be a problem? Where are all the areas? Primary areas, secondary areas, and then you ask, what could actually happen? What's the type of collision? And say, sorry, I skipped a step. The other thing is, what is the main potential problem? And this is where it gets into an opinion, where your son or daughter might say, I think the people coming on the right are the biggest potential problem. And you might say, yeah, okay, but I think it's more on the left. And you can explain why. Is it a visibility issue? Is it the speed? Is it a curve? What is it that where you think that the left is more of a bigger potential problem than the right? But before you say, I would say before you tell them, I disagree, I think it's the bigger potential problems on the left, and let me tell you why. Ask them why they think, like, the potential problem on the right is the bigger problem. Because, again, a lot of times it might be just kind of a feeling they have. Just a feeling. Well, feelings are nice, but it's nice to actually break it down as into what exactly is causing this feeling. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn left. So again, where are people coming from? What's the bigger potential risk? And what could happen? What's the type of collision? Why they think it's the bigger potential risk? And talk about the type of collision. And I talk a lot about collisions, and some people don't like it because it's stuff that you don't really want to talk about. But if you really want to learn defensive driving, you have to talk about the potential collisions. And I really encourage this because this will actually make you a better driver too. So I'm going to turn left here onto this Entertainment Avenue. Again, you can't see. And this is where I could say, okay, again, where are people coming from that could be a problem? And where do you think is the biggest potential problem? And why? Why do you think that? I'm driving down this Entertainment Avenue, and this is where you could say, okay, I want to go straight, but can you tell me, where is the bigger risk? Where are people coming from? Where is the bigger risk? And again, this promotes scanning, looking around, and risk priority, where you are actually trying to think of where people are actually coming from, what's the bigger risk? Because for a new driver, they're thinking people are coming from everywhere. And that's when the anxiety can hit, is because they just look around, they see movement everywhere, people coming from everywhere. But you have to look at it kind of systematically and say, well, who is the bigger potential problem? Who's the closest potential problem to us? And then start breaking it down that way, and then hopefully they start to understand that yes, there's risk everywhere, but there's levels of risk. And again, it could be based upon how close the vehicle is, how large a vehicle is, blind spots, speed, a lot of different factors. And because again, a lot of new drivers, they get overwhelmed because they just kind of look at it as death everywhere. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but it certainly is not going to help. So this is very easy to do. Where are people coming from? In your opinion, what's the bigger risk? Then you can go further, and I try to go further. I talk about what kind of collision would happen, what might we do in a split second to avoid the collision, and I'll say what can we do to avoid everything altogether. What proactive defensive driving techniques can we do so that we don't have to swerve, or we don't have to brake, or do both. You know, what little things can we do, can we build a habit of? Okay, so that is about it. Again, very simple, easy technique to get your student looking around, identifying risks, prioritizing risks, thinking about what might happen, and think about what you might do in a split second. And as I tell students on the second drive, all living creatures on this planet do the same thing to avoid a collision. Every living creature, no matter what they do, as long as there's movement involved, every living creature accelerates, they brake, and they swerve, or they might do a combination. So knowing that, it's actually quite simple to think about what you would do in a situation. Would you brake, swerve, accelerate? And of course the goal is not to do some type of emergency maneuver. The goal is to do a proactive thing. So for example, well, what if the guy in front of me slams on the brakes? Well, then I would slam on the brakes. Okay. A lot of people would say that's great defensive driving, but to me, great defensive driving would be not even having to slam on the brakes at all. So then it's like, okay, well, how can we avoid slamming on the brakes at all when the guy in front of us slams on the brakes? What can we do? Oh, have more following distance. So again, slamming on the brakes when the guy in front of you slams on the brakes is definitely reactive defensive driving. A lot of people would say, hey, I'm an awesome driver. And I would say, well, why did you have to slam on your brakes in the first place? Why don't we have more following distance? So maybe we need a little bit of braking, but definitely not slamming on the brakes. So again, that is real defensive driving. And this is what I talk about on the second drive. So if you're kind of curious, if your son or daughter says that we pulled off next to a white fence and we sat and talked forever about it, this is kind of the stuff that I'm talking about. It's definitely far more than they teach anywhere, including motorcycle schools. Motorcycle schools talk a little bit about this stuff, but not a lot. So we're going really, really deep into real, true defensive driving beyond just acknowledging risk. But again, start off with acknowledging the risk, where are people coming from, and then say which is the bigger priority, what's the biggest risk, and discuss why, and discuss what you would do if it actually happened, the type of collision and what you would do if it actually happened, and then maybe discuss what proactive defensive driving techniques you can do to prevent it from even happening in the first place. But anyways, and keep in mind, if you do this with your son or daughter, you will probably become a better driver yourself, because I've noticed that with myself. I started implementing these techniques myself. I had students do it, and then as I was driving myself, I started doing a lot of these techniques. I just said, you know what? Just because I'm a driving instructor and everything doesn't mean I can't do these techniques, this analyzing risk and looking around and thinking about what I would do and getting proactive. So I really started doing a lot of these things that I have the students do, and I've noticed my stress has gone down. I don't get into collisions, I don't get tickets, I don't get passive aggressive, and it's really helped me out. So this is more than just for your son or daughter in driver's training. If you do this a lot with them, you will probably become a better driver yourself. So I really encourage it. All right, thanks a lot. Oh, that